It's been 5 years we've been following this case, and it's time for Chad Daybell to pack his bags because he's not going to Kauai. He's going to prison. Before we go over the verdicts, we got to jump back in time.
The guy that matters here, who sets the instruction and tells us the rules we have to follow. And the rule is, you must remember the defendant, Chad Guy Daybell, has the presumption of innocence, and you must consider his innocence based solely on the evidence, the facts and evidence that you have been presented. That's what you have to consider. We don't speculate. We do not guess. We do not engage in conjecture. We don't do any of those things. Facts and evidence. Facts and evidence.
17-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old JJ Vallow for the first time. Chad Daybell telling ABC News the kids are safe, but giving no more details. Several people telling ABC News he shared the same with them before heading to Idaho, where his wife, Lori Vallow, will soon be extradited.
And I said, "Are your kids okay?" And he said yes. I said, "Is Lori okay?" And he said yes.
Tylee was killed 10 days later.
Lori took JJ's Social Security benefits starting mid-September, the detective getting choked up, pointing out,
JJ was killed a few days later.
He says Lori texted Chad ahead of all that in July about receiving the money.
That Lori's former friend, Melanie Gibb, recorded with the defendant and her husband. Take a listen.
I did have a question that I asked Al at one point, your brother, if I wanted to know, like where he was, and he said I did not want to know, and that he could not be found. So what does that mean? I don't know why he would say that, but it's the same story. Like I don't even want Al to know. I don't want anybody to know, so that nobody has to be worried about it. I mean, nobody has to be, questioned about it, so worried about it. I mean, nobody has to be, questioned about it, so he can be safe. Yeah, so are you...
Or not, whether you accept his religious beliefs, 144,000, that's his beliefs. He was a gatherer. He was a gatherer of the 144,000, and he said, I want to gather people, the sick, the elderly, the children, the impoverished, those that can't handle for themselves, and those that may be able to go on and become a part and parcel, as this gatherer that he suggests would put together 44,000 in Rexburg. Now, whether you think that's crazy or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you agree with light and dark percentage, the fact that she felt like she had something possessed in her, and Chad helped her rid her of that spirit. Now, whether you believe it or not, it doesn't matter. But I asked her, does that mean you die? No. And when they're talking about inflicting pain and inflicting discomfort, they're not talking about inflicting discomfort on the actual person. The discussion, if they took the time to look at it, is they're inflicting pain on the spirit that's inhabited the body, and they're trying to make it uncomfortable so that the body and the spirit are separated, and that spirit goes off, and you make it uncomfortable enough that that spirit disappears.
Emma Murray, Chad's daughter, and Garth Daybell, Chad's son, talked about their father's religious beliefs and his practice of rating people as light and dark. They also both testified that their mother, Tammy, had health problems before she died in October 2019.
At the time of the discovery of the passing of your mother, how would you describe your father's emotions?
He was more distressed than I've ever seen him in my entire life.
Lines of people showed up at the Ada County Courthouse to hear Chad Daybell's children testify in their father's trial.
Would it be safe to say, was Chad someone who was comfortable around death?
Oh, he would have to be.
Chad into one vehicle, Lori into another. Lori Nate Eaton with East Idaho News. Can you tell me where your kids are? Where are your kids? No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Where are your children?
It's been 4 years since Chad was arrested after police investigators find those 2 children buried on his own property.
He remains behind bars, charged with murdering them. Did your father, Chad Daybell, play any role in killing JJ and Tylee?
No, it's completely Emily is growing suspicious over her death.
I know Tammy's on a special mission and she's with my kids. She's visited them. There's so much, Melanie, that you just have to have faith. And this is not some sort of master plan. There's no way Lori and I should ever come up with this.
Today was the day for all the victims, especially this one's for you, Tammy Daybell. I was so upset that there wasn't anybody really representing her. And I heard through Nate Eaton at East Idaho News that her dad showed up the first and only time, and I was ecstatic about that. Now, Tammy's sister Sam has been very supportive. They've even been witnesses. But that's really all that we see there for Tammy. What about Tammy's kids? Unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but to many of us, and even myself, I was very disappointed to see they were not there for her. Chad has destroyed this family, ripped them apart, and this will continue to happen with this family because he's not man enough to do the right thing. Yes. Jury members reached their verdict today, and it just shows that, you know, a lot of people expected that they would be in deliberation for days. And the way that Miss Blake did her closing arguments, I felt like that's going to get them straight and they're going to be just fine. They deliberated for, they started yesterday, May 29th, until later that evening, and then started again at 8:30 this morning on May 30th of 2024. Many of you did your guesses. I still got to go through those. I haven't had time, but it's going to be interesting. I know my guess was either at 8 or around lunchtime. I felt like this was something that would give people, you know, something kind of calm them down because a lot of people are anxious. They're just ready to see justice. So today, around 1 o'clock p.m., in between 1 and 1:15, according to Nate Eaton, it was about 6 hours of deliberation when the jury had reached a verdict. In fact, the word actually passed around quickly, and Kay Woodcock caught wind of it. She yelled it out, and she got in a little bit of trouble. So I thought that was funny. But they were all excited because they were ready to see justice prevail. It's around 4:03 this afternoon when the court cameras switch on, and you can see the comments on East Idaho News covering this trial. Comments went crazy. I don't think I've ever seen comments go that crazy before. Judge Boyce, he logs into his computer, and Chad Daybell sat beside his defense attorney, John Pryor. He's a bit slumped. Most likely he was eager, probably a little bit scared, because he was about to learn his fate. We were all on the edge of our seats as the jury walked in. Judge Boyce instructs the marshal to collect the verdict form, in which he does. People are looking around the court. They don't see the Daybell children. They're doing what they do best, what most people understand, and that's hiding away and isolating. It might be because of the comments that are online. They're not very pretty. I might hide myself. Now, as they're carrying up this verdict, I thought John Pryor looked more nervous than Chad. I have to say, I do believe that John Pryor took this case to heart. It was around 2:10 that afternoon. The verdict comes in, and it was guilty, 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 and guilty. To my surprise, Nate did report something that made me very happy. He said that he noticed that Tammy's father was in the courtroom. He seen Mr. Douglas and Larry Woodcock hug after the verdict. Tammy did not do it alone that day. She had people there that loved her and cared for her. So our next step is going into the penalty phase, and that's where we'll hear statements from the victims. Now, the jury did have to go back and deliberate on whether or not they believe Chad would receive the death penalty. This one, I don't think I can guess. We at least know that Chad Daybell is not going to see freedom for the rest of his life, no matter what. So that's a plus. It's interesting to think about, is Lori watching this trial? And if so, is she thinking, well, this is the part of the plan where she picks out this scenario from either the Bible or the Book of Mormon and compares it to a story in that book. The way that they see it is a lot of these disciples or prophets of God, they had to go through some things. We also are going to wonder, once Chad gets behind bars, the men in the prison that he goes to, are they going to tolerate a child killer? Now, something you need to remember is that Chad and Lori both are speaking to spirits as we speak. And Lori even had the nerve to say that she was speaking to Tammy Daybell. She insinuated that Tammy was happy and she was fulfilling her mission. Lori was talking to Tammy behind the veil. Yeah. In fact, she mentioned that during her statement after her verdict.
Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I have had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones, and I have lost many in this mortal world. However, I know them more than most people. I know where they are now and what they're doing. I know how wonderful heaven is, and I'm homesick for it every single day.
So remember, both Lori and Chad are telling his children that they're speaking to spirits like Tammy's behind the veil. They're speaking to these people in the spirit world. This is their reality. And their children must believe them, since they're going along with this so easily. And I will admit, what the Daybell children are going through is crazy, insane, and very difficult. The reality is sinking in, I'm sure, that now he's considered guilty. The next step in the phase is to see if he will receive the death penalty or not. I know that prosecutors are exhausted. They're ready for this to be over with. And we all know that John Pryor is most likely ready to cut those ties. The Daybell children are going to face ridicule. And let's talk about why. There's a video that come out of Tammy dancing and going down slides, climbing on walls. This is going to make those testimonies by the two children not look so well. And so going back to work, they may have a few people giving them the side eye, especially for Emma Daybell. Whatever she said on the stand that day, it will come back and affect her for the rest of her life. So my husband come home and I think he gave me some kind of flu or whatever. So I was kind of rushing to go through this. May not be the best video. Also, I'm sharing a few comments for you guys. So make sure you read through those. So Larry and Woodcock, they still have 2 more trials to go through. And I have to play something for you guys that Larry, one of his things that he did with JJ, I think will play perfectly after each verdict for both Lori and Chad. We are sending our love out from this channel to the families, victims, and friends that have been enduring through this nightmare for over 4 years. Thank you to the witnesses who told the truth on the stand. Thank you, prosecutors and law enforcement, for all that you did throughout this case. We are a team here on this channel, and I want you guys to share whether or not you believe Chad Daybell will face the death penalty. Now, Chad Daybell, guilty on all counts. What would Larry Woodcock say? Well, I believe this is something that he and JJ would agree to say. Turn out the lights. The party's over.
Turn out the lights. The party's over. Lori. So, any other questions?
What's the lyric in that song?